Gillian, thank you. We've got the newspapers coming up for you in just a moment with Michael Bucket and Kate Williams. Morning.
Good morning.
You've got something you're going to love here, this petition, because you know over here, if you can launch a petition on the government website, and if they get enough signatures, they have to respond. Same in the States, where actually some people have gone onto the White House website with a petition demanding a Death Star. They've said they can't have it, various reasons why. One is the cost. Look at this. That's $850 million.
Yeah.
That's something, quadrillion. That's $850 quadrillion. So they say we can't afford it. It says the administration does not support blowing up planets. Why would you spend countless tax dollars on a Death Star that can be exploited by a one-man starship, an X-wing fighter, of course. But actually, they've come up with some great things as well. That they talk about NASA's Commercial Crew and Cargo Program Office, or as they're calling their C-3PO, which is very good. They also talk about their president, who is, all the keywords I'll zoom in on, very handy with a lightsaber. Apparently, that's a hyperlink, so we could find out quite what they mean by that. They also, of course, look at the research that NASA's doing, which would help them rebuild Luke's arm, which is all very good. And they also, where was that other key line that I saw? Oh, there you go. Even though the United States doesn't have anything that can do the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs, which of course is what the Millennium Falcon is famous
I do like
for
the way
doing.
they open the letter, though, saying the administration shares your desire for job creation. So they've let them down gently.
But also, this isn't the petition response you're looking for.
Oh.
Which is great. Love it. I'm glad to see they've got a bit of a sense of humour.
For another generation.
They had quite a good thing recently, didn't they? That a toy train manufacturer wrote to the Department of Transport offering to take over the Virgin franchise, and the Department of Transport wrote back saying he thought the toy trains weren't quite up to the speed that we needed on British Rail.
All sides.
I love it when you get a bit of a sense of humour from the people in power. Anyway, let's look through the papers and to the serious matters of the day. You've picked the Independent. Kate, haven't you?
Yes.
Looking at Jimmy Savile.
All the newspapers covering Savile, most of the front pages covering Savile, and this is all the inside pages adding to the analysis, you know, talking about this report that's come out to suggest the shocking level and the shocking extent of his crimes, 60 years of abuse all over the country, different ages, different sexes, children to adults. Obviously, the last offence reported is in 2009. And, you know, 13 hospitals, BBC, everything. And this article here is really trying to suggest perhaps how we can possibly look into his background and how possibly we can suggest, did he ever get to do such crimes? And one of the suggestions the journalist Jonathan Brown is suggesting is that it's through the fact that he became a local celebrity through these dance halls as a consequence of working at the dance halls where there were loads of young people, loads of young girls. He had a lot of local power and could really get away with doing what he wanted. I mean, that's what they're suggesting. There was, I think, a story in his own autobiography in which he said that a police officer came to try and get a girl from a remand home who'd run away and was in the dance hall, and he said, well, no, if I give her back, I'll take the rest of your force down with me. So she had to let him keep her for the night. So he admitted it in his autobiography. So I think this is trying to put him in a context and trying to suggest how he would have got away with being what some of the papers are suggesting is Britain's most prolific child abuser in history.
Yeah,
he groomed the nation. That's what the headline is, and that's what the Times is saying too.
Yeah, that's a slightly odd phrase in a way, isn't it? But I don't know. It is no doubt.
I mean, it's interesting the reaction.
Terrible.
You know, I saw on the paper review last night. I think it was the Times Online editor saying that they'd had complaints from readers saying, "Look, we know it's a very important story, but all these pictures of Jimmy Savile, we just don't like to see them anymore." And I know we've had a lot of letters like that at the Express as well since the coverage started in, what was it, October. Just to say that the pictures everywhere of him, yes, it's a horrible story. They don't want to be reminded of it. Plus, there's quite a lot of people out there who still see him as as someone that hasn't done anything wrong in their eyes. And
do you think that's true?
I've seen lots of comments online. We've had letters as well to say that. You know, I think older people. You know, because it hasn't been tested in court, I think
that's the problem.
Is what they say as well. And there's, you know, is it justice? for him in those eyes. Yes, now finally the people who have been molested, people who have been abused, they have now got some justice from this. But there does seem to be certain people out there who do seem to still see him in a vaguely positive light.
Yeah, just briefly, just been flicking through the pictures in, is it the Mirror? The Mirror. This morning, Michael, but also, I mean, Esther Ranson saying this must not happen again.
Yeah. Well, of course. I mean, the problem again, everyone said they've learnt their lessons from this, but there is an ongoing inquiry into others as well, isn't there? And you just hope that, they've got to be careful with that as well. They don't want to be going too far the other way as well, and rushing to prosecute people as well. I think that, they've just got to be very, very careful.
It's a key question about justice, isn't it? Because obviously what we needed was justice at the time, and this is a fascinating part of the report, that so many of the accusers were dissuaded of taking it forward. That people were told that Savills lawyers would make mincemeat of them, that their names would be all over the papers, which of course they wouldn't. That's illegal. Accusers are kept anonymous, and the real suggestion that the police have let down some of the victims. And I think this is a wider question as well. I mean, was it just Savile that the police dissuaded victims of coming forward, or is this a question that perhaps the police in general of obviously non-celebrity sex abusers are saying, don't do it, we can't make a case out of it, which really suggests why some people get away with it.
There's certainly a lot of questions to be answered still in all this. It's going to take a long time to do it, I should think. Thank you. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. We've got lots more coming up for you in just a minute, including why he's got a ticket to ride. Commuters think the rail minister is finally on the right track, perhaps. And Dodgy Duchess or Perfect Picture, why Kate's portrait is receiving mixed reviews. So we're looking through the papers with Kate and with Michael to the front of the FT this morning, where the PM is going to be spoiling
a party.
Our relationship with our European partners.
Very interesting story from the FT, who often lead on stories that no one else is leading on. This one, David Cameron apparently has astonished Berlin because he's going to give this big speech about Europe. We're looking forward to this big speech. But he's chosen a date when hundreds of French and German politicians are going to be gathering in Berlin to mark the 50th anniversary of the Elysée Treaty, the post-war treaty for peace, which is a big moment of peace, of reconciliation between these, obviously, the war enemies, France and Germany. And this is going to be on January the 22nd, which is the date that Cameron is talking about to give his talk. And Cameron has said, oh, well, I've chosen it because it's a good date in between Obama's inauguration on the 21st and the beginning of the World Economic Forum in Davos on the 23rd. But the Germans are astonished and very upset. And it says one senior German official says the timing is quite extraordinary.
They'll be choking on their garlic sausages.
Yeah, they're not happy over there. Exactly. No croissants for Cameron. They're not very pleased.
Oh dear. Anyway, let's swiftly be actually sticking with the Financial Times. Post offices could become police offices?
Well, apparently so, yeah. The Post Office is in early talks with Scotland Yard and 10 other police forces around the country on a joint venture that basically means the Post Office becomes the police station. So there'll be little booths, apparently, run by civilian police staff. So they'll be sat there in a little chair, in a little booth, and you go in, and apparently there'll be things like you take down lost property reports, check your documents for driving offences, possibly even report crimes. But they're closing down post offices, aren't there, everywhere? The post office is now being shoehorned into garages and things like that.
Especially country post offices.
Well, exactly. Everything's going to be all shoehorned into a little garage. It will be your post office, your police station. It could become a little hub for the town, maybe, but it just seems as though it's kind of doing down the police. Really.
I love the tag. I don't know if you can see it there on the views of the picture, stamping out crime.
That's Vegas.
Which says it all. Well, if you've got to do things to keep post offices alive, haven't you? So it's.
Well, I'd rather keep the police stations alive, really.
Well, well, I know it's a tough one.
So you don't feel that by doing this, you're not taking on the kind of administrative burden of the police?
Well, I think they are. Well, I think it's a damn silly idea, to be honest. But
oh, there you go. Well, I'll tell you what. How about taking the train to Chio? Because the rail minister's having a lovely time on the train, isn't he? He's really enjoying himself.
I love this story. Welcome to the rail world. Simon Burns, the rail minister, was previously unmasked at using a chauffeur to get to work. Yes, this £80,000 a year chauffeur was
his thought bubble
getting
is
him
quite
to
nice
work.
there.
He does look gutted, doesn't he?
Taking him from Westminster to his Essex home, but now he's got to join in with all the rest of us on our morning commute on the train. So he swapped his government car for and the Mirror says here, a taste of the morning misery endured by millions every day. 5:20, he leaves home and walks the cold, lonely streets of Chelmsford to get on his train, which is absolutely crammed all the way there.
I like this comment for the Campaign for Better Transport. Maybe now he'll listen to passengers.
Yeah, I tell you, you have to say, if you're going to be rail minister, you would expect them to be able to.
He was talking about security, but I don't think anyone would recognise him. Members of his own family either.
No, I mean, and obviously, what is the concern about security? I mean, it's full of commuters,
well,
full of business people, that everyone's busy on their iPads and not looking at him. But yes, I think it seems pretty essential if you're rail minister to actually go on the trains, to go through the commuting that everyone else is. And it's obviously going to be a lot worse next week with the snow.
We're going to be looking at Africa on our TVs. Michael?
Yeah, the BBC's documentary, BBC One's documentary with Sir David Attenborough. Now, I seem to remember last year when he did documentary, he was being criticised for it being faked and people being manipulated and scenes being manipulated in those ways. Now, the public have been complaining because it's too real, because we're seeing lots of emotions on there. We're seeing like elephants crying over over fallen sons and daughter elephants and things like that, and giraffes dying, and people getting all upset over that. And they're saying they're playing with our emotions by showing us what's happening in the real world. It's terrible. Now we're complaining about it being too real. So I think
no pleasing people.
Well, there isn't, is there? I mean, yes, it's very emotional, but that's kind of the point of nature,
and
isn't it?
they're dying in drought. I mean, this is what's happening in Africa.
Well, exactly.
It's suffering drought, and this is why this elephant is dying. And obviously, that's a very distressing picture there, but that is the natural world.
Welcome to the real world.
Yeah, it's well, you can't argue with that, really. I cannot see what people are complaining
Poor
about.
elephants.
Talking about not being able to see why people are complaining,
No.
have you seen the new picture of Kate, the Duchess of Cambridge? I think this is absolutely beautiful. I think it's fantastic. It's being slammed by the critics.
It's slated, yes. Nearly every critic, apart from that in the Daily Express, is suggesting it's
Her
awful.
Majesty's Daily Express,
Awful.
very
They're
loyal.
all suggesting it's terrible. There are criticisms of her look, of the portrait, but it's very interesting because, you know, this is Paul Emsley. He always does portraits against a black background. Well, not always, but usually. And there's been a fabulous one he's done of Nelson Mandela. He goes for realism, he goes for close realism, and he's really been slated here.
But the critic is saying that, have we got it back up there, Stephen, that it's making her look older than she actually is, and it's lost that twinkle in her
She
eye.
looks a bit like an
Right.
attractive Labrador. But she also looks a little bit American from the 80s. You can imagine it, Grace, you know, Alexis Colby Carrington or whatever.
Carrington Colby.
In Dynasty.
Yeah,
you can
but that's
imagine it
all
on
back
the wall
in Dynasty.
as they were coming down the stairs.
See,
that sort of
you see, I've
portrait.
got an issue with arty people because I tend to think they're a bit. You know, I don't try to think how to phrase it. But here we go. Robin Simon, editor of the British Art Journal, says it's the gallery's fault because it's encouraged painting based on photos in recent years. The trouble is, you still need some ability with oils. You're saying this bloke hasn't got ability with oils?
It is.
You've got to be kidding me.
And I think what it also is this is not just a portrait of her now when she's 31 and pregnant. It's a portrait for the whole of her life. I mean, this is a portrait that perhaps it doesn't look quite like she does at the moment. She looks a bit older. But when she is 10 years old, this is probably how she's going to look then. And I think that it's a portrait for posterity, and I think it's a very interesting choice of hers.
I think it's absolutely
We need
fantastic.
you two in the portrait gallery now. We need
Well, there you
Stephen
go.
and Gillian there.
Start a campaign. Actually, let us know what you think of this. At Sky
Yeah.
Gillian, at Sky Stephen would love to know. Thank you. See you in an hour.
Thank
Charlie,
you.
what have you got on the back pages for us?
Have a look at the